In this episode, I'm chatting with Jordan from Waters Above. Through his YouTube channel, he offers technical analysis of the markets with a heavy focus on crypto. And if crypto ain't your thing, he does an awesome job of decoding what's going on the world stage through gematria, numerology, and astrology. One of my favorite things he offers, and a big part of what I look forward to on the weekend, is his live streams. I usually am doing things around the house or cooking or something like that while I listen to the live streams. He talks about all the things and answers listeners' questions. Lastly, he offers a bunch of courses through his website. I took his Mastermind Expansion course, and it's really helped me with so many things in my life. He's also built a really awesome community through his Patreon monthly membership, which gives you extra videos and access to his Discord, where there are a lot of helpful people in there to help with anything from crypto questions to health and wellness. I know I'm really fangirling right here, but Jordan is one of my favorite people, and I admire and respect the hell out of him. I'll link all his details in the description below, and I hope you enjoy this one. What's up? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing better every day. How about you?
Yeah, I like to say I'm climbing the mountain every day, just getting higher and higher.
What happens when you get to the top of the mountain?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've never been to the top, but I liked one thing that you said. You just find the next mountain.
Yeah, I feel like that's the case. Like we're always getting to the top and then we're like, "Well, where's the next? Where's the bigger one?
Yeah, yeah,
Where's the one with more snow?" There's something to
yeah,
difficulty, right? Like we actually kind of enjoy it. At least that's the personality type that I have.
yeah. I'm coming around to enjoying it. I used to kind of be, victim mentality, and now I'm just like, ah, fuck it. Just take it, go with the flow, but also, take the steps that, in the direction that I want my life to go.
Yeah, it's really important. A lot of the time, this whole victim type vibe is super common in the foundational layer of expanding consciousness, right? Like maybe you find some sort of idea, like, I don't know. I don't know how far we can go with with this platform or whatever you got going on, but I think you get the idea here. It's that you find some really dark piece of information and then it's a rabbit hole. And then you feel as if there's this nefarious group of elite, people running the world. And it could be very defeating, like it could totally shut you down. And I've gone through this myself. I've been very vulnerable about this process that I've been on. And I had this realization one time through a friend who was talking about all of this stuff that, you or I probably have studied into, and then he said that he's having a kid. And I was like, oh, that's pretty fascinating because a lot of the time people think that this world's going to be so shitty, that why even bring a kid into the world, right? And he said, well, like, this is my biggest fuck you to the elite. It's by just doing my thing and deciding to, like, I want to be a part of this creative process and I want to be a father and all this stuff. And it was super influential for me to hear somebody who knew so much about what was going on, but simultaneously not be such defeat to it, you know, to still have a future paved for them in some capacity, fearless, and to be fearless about it. And I almost feel like all of the truth community and a lot of the stuff that we stumble upon is built to get you to go through this process where you're like, why even try anymore?
Hmm.
And that destroys
Yeah.
people.
Yes, and I had a friend who has said that to me. She doesn't know if she wanted to have kids. She's like, "Why bring a kid into this world?" And I have two boys, 6 and 8, and I just feel, well, okay, if this world is going to get shittier or weirder, definitely going to get weirder. Like, I would like to raise children, to become adults, to change things and to bring more into the world. And, I try to do that by teaching them, they're public schools. So, they'll come home and they'll be like, yeah, we learned about the moon, today. And I'll say, well, we might not have even have gone to the moon. And they're like, what? And I'll like, talk to them or whatever. And it's so interesting to be able to speak to them, because I always say to them, I'm like, you can believe what you want to believe. Just be open minded and just not just take everything that is spoon fed to you.
Yeah, 100%. If there's anything that we could gift kids in this new age, it's like discernment and intuition. Like those are
Hmm.
the two most powerful pieces of technology that we're all brought here with, and very few access them.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's great that you're like you're still allowing it even though you have the awareness, cuz yeah, many people choose the homeschooling route, and of course you're allowed to do whatever's most convenient for you, and I'm sure you have your intentional reasons for doing such, but yeah, it's almost actually more awesome to allow the kid to go through this scam if they're being taught and brought through this whole thing with the questioning mindset, because that's what I experienced. Perhaps it's what you experienced too. Like people people would want to assume that maybe I had some special treatment growing up, but it's like, no, I went to the typical public school system. I was told to stand during the Pledge of Allegiance. I decided not to. I was told that like Hitler's a bad guy and this thing is this and this thing is that. And I was like, every time somebody said something, I almost always felt it must be the opposite. That's just been like my whole way. I don't know what's going on with my code, but it's been very much like that. My mom didn't tell me to watch out for the fake moon landing. Like my mom did, like none of that shit. So it's like you can still access all of this awareness and this, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, tap into the Akashic records. You can still tap into this information field even when you're going through the scam system. Even when you go through, I know people that have gone to college and they've gone and become doctors, and then C19 happened, right? And then they have this moral dilemma where they're like, I know about germ theory now. What do I do? What do I do? You know, my whole life that we're talking about 40, 50-year-old people that have been in this indoctrination camp for so long, and this has become them. And then they become illuminated to this, and now you can't avoid it anymore. It's like once you open up that box, your Pandora's box, you're there. And I just tell
Yeah.
people, you know, if you had a discernment and this access to intuition earlier, what you're helping your kids with right now, you would have avoided so much of these slips later in life.
Yeah. And that's interesting too, because I'm probably somebody, or I'm not saying, I'm sure you speak to many different people, but I was a person who, yeah, I stood, did the Pledge of Allegiance, did whatever my teacher told me. I mean, I definitely have a part to me that I always have been, I don't want to say difficult, but definitely just don't fall into line. I'm just, you know, I definitely, well, it's strange. Like I'll go with the flow and do whatever, whatever I need to do. But yeah, if something doesn't feel right, then I kind of become rogue. But growing up, I believed everything that was taught to me. And I really didn't come into like quote unquote an awakening probably maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. And I have done such, you speak about this unlearning in those
Mhm.
years. And, with the C19, like I was different than probably most people you might speak to. Like I got the vaccine and I was fine with doing it. I work in healthcare and no one even pressured me to do it. I was just like, no, I bought into that whole narrative of fear. And, I looked at it as like I wanted to protect, people around me and my family.
Yeah.
And I wasn't real crazy. Like I didn't like clean my like groceries when I brought them home. I wasn't like that crazy. But, as I got into it and the whole C19 of, wearing the mask, and I'm like, well, wait a second. We're supposed to be doing this for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And here we are like months and months later and really started to unravel through that. And then my brother, he's a lot like you. Not that I know you, but from what I hear of you, he has always been that way of never going the way of what the system says. He lived in a tent for like a year, maybe close to a year. And I remember him telling me he was going to live in a tent. And I remember thinking, like, what? You don't want to live like me? Like, have a 9 to 5 job and like a mortgage and all these bills? And, I thought like that's the way to live. And then, went through my awakening and had a divorce was a big part of my awakening too. And
Wow.
I laugh with it now because I look back and I say to my brother, I'm like, "Man, you had it right," doing all those things and living in a tent. And that was just for his, he doesn't live in a tent anymore. That was, for his spiritual growth. So my brother was a big integral part of, and actually he introduced me to your channel,
Oh,
which really
snap.
got
Shout
me.
out to your
Yeah.
brother, bro.
Yeah, no,
Dope.
yeah. And actually it's funny how it all happened because somebody got me into crypto. And then I got my brother into crypto, and he is much more, or, where I was at that point, into the esoteric. And he came across your channel and recommended it to me. And then I started watching it, and I am not great at crypto. I don't, but I'm learning, and I'm definitely learning the majority from you because I have watched, a lot of YouTube videos on crypto, and it's hard, a lot of those videos I don't have a connection with, or they don't, resonate with me, just the
Sure.
people in general. So when I was started to listen to you, I really got pulled into like the esoteric part and your decoding, your gematria and numerology, astrology. And it's funny, when I first started watching your videos, I was like, oh shit, this is like watching like the Da Vinci Code. But like, you're much, 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 much more interesting than like Tom Hanks. So
I'd hope.
yes. I mean, you guys might have the same kind of knowledge, just using it differently, maybe. But just really interesting. And wanted to tell you too that that last video that you came out with, that was such an awesome video. I've recommended that video to a few people because that for me, like I've listened to you for about a year and a half, but
Mhm.
that video just really connected so many dots, and to see like really, you know, with the eclipse season. Oh, and I thought it was interesting realizing that we're meeting on like the full moon in Scorpio, closing out like the eclipse season,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's true.
just thought it
By
was
the
really
by the
cool.
way, dope shirt. I love
I
that
know, I thought
shirt.
you'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that color. I love that
Yeah,
color so much.
yeah. And it's funny, my brother, I got him the like a different color, but for his birthday, and he would, he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
I
this is a,
appreciate you.
really cool shirt." Yeah, and, he was going into it about, like, the numbers and, like, the
Mhm, mhm.
Egyptian, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I didn't even notice all that." I'm like, "I just thought it was a cool shirt and just wanted to, like, support a friend." So
Yeah, that really means that's really amazing that you brought that up because I wanted to make something, and there's a couple things to add to what you said, but it comes full circle to literally what you just explained. I wanted to make I love making things where even if you don't care about what something means, or maybe you don't know about what something means, it just feels right. Like, or
Mhm,
you just dig it, like if it has class or it has something interesting about it or something unique, then you don't really need to know about all of the little intricacies. So whenever I design my art, and I think that shirt you're wearing is a great example of it, where I decided to come up with an idea that pieced together so many important things to me, but it also summarizes me, and it summarizes the work that I do in a single image. And I just I love when I hear people say, "I just love the way the shirt looks." Instead
mhm,
of having this, like, I love the meaning behind the shirt, because it tells me that, like, it's applied to both people. Yeah, so that means a lot to hear you say that, because as a musician especially, I don't love just hearing other musicians appreciate my art. I like when I hear that people who don't normally care about all the intricacies of how the song was produced or the sample or whatever weird instruments that I threw in there that you might not even notice. Like, I like to know it just made you feel something. And I guess why this last video I released is very powerful for many is because it was my first time slowing myself down and going, you know, maybe I'm getting a little too advanced in some of this stuff. Maybe I'm not showing enough about what is going on. And I don't want to say assuming that everyone's just in the know, but I am kind of quick with my ideas. I'm very like I have a very unique perspective on a lot of things, and I'm aware that not even most people know about what gematria is. Like, most people have no idea. A lot of people that are into astrology don't even know about sidereal astrology. A lot of people that are into astrology don't even know about mythology. So think about it. They're going 5, 10, 15 years sometimes, and they don't even know the stories that make up these luminaries. To me, that's just a wow moment. So it's like that was my opportunity to create something where I'm like, I don't want it to be as complicated, but I still want it to have that artistic perspective. So people that are like you that are open can go, oh, like I resonate with this. And maybe that right now can inspire me. Instead of people just following what I have to say or thinking I have the truth or thinking that I'm making predictions, like, fuck all of that. Like, that's unimportant. Like, none of that really actually matters at the end of the day. Because that's where most of our mental health problems arise, is when we want something to go our way in the future, right? That's the
Yeah.
problem with man. Like, man's biggest issue is wanting to control the future. And I'm like, how could we be spiritual beings if we want it to go our way? Like, that's the least spiritual thing. So, yeah, I don't know. A lot of the things you said are awesome, and you pointed out a lot of stuff that typically people don't point out. And that last video I put a lot of energy into specifically because I feel like I have more people to tap into, and I can't be so advanced all the time. I got to just show people with one image like, look, we've been watching out for this time frame for a long time. Here's all the code. Here's the reason why we thought it would go this way. And then ultimately, and to finish off this stream of consciousness, it's like I wanted people to know where I'm at morally. Like, I don't want this shit to happen. I don't want people to be bombed. I don't want to watch a war unfold. Like, there's nothing that makes me feel good about that. Like, I don't want to be right. I don't want to predict that. Like, bro, imagine I was getting bombed. Imagine
Yeah.
your mother was in a town that was getting, we don't want that. So it's weird. Like, I'm in a weird place right now where like a lot of people still want to play the duality consciousness of he's right or he's wrong, but they're forgetting that at the end of the day, like, I'm team human. I'm team advancement of our species and I'm team evolution of consciousness. I don't want to be right. Like, where does right get me in that? There's no
Yeah.
there's no true leader in wanting to be right. Like, a true leader wants more. Like, they want more for what we're going through right now, and I think that's a tough place to be because it's brought me to a place where I really have to slow myself down and I have to check in with my desires. I have to check in with my ego, and yeah.
Yeah. You just kind of blew my mind right there with just like five different things that were going on in my mind when you were talking. Um, your videos, that's the one thing I love about your videos is, I'm into astrology and, all the things. I love mythology, like, love it. So I love when just all those things start to come together and listening to other videos like, Jason from Archaics and Logan Decode from, Decode Your Reality, and even some
Mhm.
other channels that I listen to, when it all just comes together is what I love about it. So then when I listen to things, I'm like, oh, I can pull from here and pull from there. And then I do my own research as well, like look up stories of mythology and really, pull that together. And that for me is where my mind just goes, yes, or like my truth bell, my bell is rung on a lot of those things. And you're so right that it's not about being right or wrong. And, I'm I don't even know how to say this. Like, I have come definitely around and 100% believe, yeah, like we're living in a simulation. It's a coded matrix, right? And but not many other people around, at least my circle, like talk this way. Most everybody that I work with, and I don't. And we talk about teams. It's not about like, oh, team awakened, team unawakened. It's not
Sure.
about teams, but it's just about like who can see things and who isn't seeing them, and just they're just unable to right now. And that's where I like to plug into. Are the people who I know are very capable of seeing these things, but finding a way of having conversations with people to where like I don't come off as like a tinfoil hatter. I've had
Sure.
someone say that I like QAnon, and I'm like, well, fucking QAnon is a psyop too. So,
Yeah.
like, there are no teams here. It's just like, just trying to get people to, change. Not even, I don't even know if change the word, but just open their minds. And I did a podcast recently, and it was off the eclipse, and it was with things that you talk about and things that Jason, talked about with Revelation and the seals. And, I was trying to, I have a real big passion with mythology. So I was trying to put that with some mythology. And the feedback I was getting, at least from my friends, were like, that was really interesting, Tiffany, but I didn't know what the hell you were talking about, like, and I'm like, okay, so, you kind of do have to, not you, I just, really me taking it like, and I really feel like I'm like entry level, like maybe 3 here of
Uh,
explaining to people and coming across not in a fear-based way, right? Like it's not like
yeah,
all doom and gloom and we're revelations. It's more about preparing yourself for it, and not even like doomsday prepping, like preparing your soul and your spirituality for what we're, going to be
sure.
going through, and prepping, like, starting a garden, or, like preparing, like just
Yeah.
preparing for it all.
Yeah, there's something that you brought up a moment ago, and I want people need to hear or be reminded of the truth that if you go and tell your friends and your family this stuff, you should almost anticipate them to not really for it to not stick. And that was my whole experience my whole life. Like I consistently wanted the people closest to me to see with this eye, the first eye. And that avoidance is really what's going on. It's not that people don't want to know or that they do know or that they don't know, because there's a desire to seek knowledge, right? That comes back to wisdom. But it's really that they're just not ready to know at that time. And it's kind of the same thing with you. Like what leads to this apocalypse, if you will, by definition, something being uncovered to you, not the end of the world. But it almost does feel like a end of the world because this is always spiritual anyways, right? Like when you were feeling this awakening surge through you, even though it happened at this particular stage of your life, like quite close to this conversation that we're having now in the whole picture, it was still like a new you came out of it, right? Like it's like a rebirth in a sense. And that's the concept of the phoenix rising from the ashes, like it's transmutation. So the same thing goes for revelation. And I've been trying to get people to realize this too. When the Bible scholar or theologians come to my work, I'm like, you guys are misinterpreting all of this if you think it's something physical. I said this about this red heifer sacrifice, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. And then just today, somebody sent me a rabbi talking about what it really symbolizes. And they said pretty much the same thing that I was saying, that it's these people that are killing these cows in this particular way. They don't even understand the scripture that they're interpreting. This has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with burning 10 red cows alive. It has nothing to do with that. It's spiritual. Okay. So this bull, this cow, this cattle, this comes back to a part of our bodies. And then we could go even deeper. So, yeah, you brought up the mythological layer. Well, the mythology reveals to you anatomy. And through the anatomy, there's something even deeper there. So, everything keeps going back to the body and the mind of man, because it's the mind of man who made up the concept body. It's the mind of man who made up the concept waters above. It's the mind of man who created the concept Tiffany. These are all of human origin or genesis. So this is really important for those that are into studying the Bible or decoding the Bible, whatever you're decoding. Start with Genesis and it'll reveal to you a very esoteric, spiritual symphony of dots being connected that come straight back to you. How you should perceive this reality, this simulacrum, this matrix, whatever you personally believe in. So this concept of simulation theory is quite interesting because even from that, and I know Jason Archaics in particular has done everything he can to remind people that there's nothing to fear here about this knowing that this is a simulation, right? Because it's caused that initially for a lot of people. They're like, oh well, if this is a simulation, then YOLO, right? Or like, I don't, why, who cares? And it becomes that sort of deal. It's no different than the thing that we started off our conversation with. So One thing I've been thinking about lately is this Nas song. I don't know if you listen to any hip hop, but Nas has this super famous song called "The World Is Yours." And every time I listen to that, now that I've been a little bit more on my own decoding journey of stuff in general, not just to decode what's nefarious shit going on behind the scenes, like just looking at how code is playing through all of us, even the entertainers, even the musicians, even the music we like. If you listen to that song, "The World Is Yours," with like from a spiritual vantage point, it's fucking powerful, man. And I think people need that right now. People need to be reminded, like, you are the world. You are the universe. Like everything exists because you exist. Isn't that special? Like imagine you were told right now that everything is happening because you are making it happen. That would be a lot different than if I said everything is happening because the Illuminati is making it happen. But that's what we choose to believe. Why do we choose that? It's because it's more comfortable to have a boogeyman. Because when you have a boogeyman, you could also have a savior. And when you have a savior and a boogeyman, then you're still with mommy and daddy. You never left. You never left the playpen. You still get to have mommy's nipple, and you still get to have daddy telling you when to go to bed. You never get to leave that reality. So that childlike hypnosis, it's carried on to later in life. And that's probably for me the most fascinating thing to talk about, more than a decoder, but just the philosophy of where this all adds up to. And that's why when somebody hears about the red heifer sacrifice, this is just me bringing it a full circle right now. This is why when people hear about the red heifer sacrifice, they instantaneously turn it into something apocalyptic and end times like, and it has to be the return of the Messiah or some sort of, now we're going to have a flood or no, no, this is the Matrix, man. You think you can make this place and the future different by what you affect in the material realm? No way. Everything is happening in the spirit realm and then it's manifest in the physical. So if you're coming into it impure in the physical sense, what do you think's going to be the spiritual outcome of all of that?
Yeah. And that's what was interesting about, going back and talking about Jason and listening to his videos about, you know, the seals, if they really are, we're in the second seal, right? Like, well, if you read the Bible word from word, like what the Bible says, that's not literally what happening, right? Like it's more than that. And um to kind of research that, if you believe that, right? Like I don't care if someone believes it or not, um but that it's not going to be so literal, and to not take any of that literal, and that
Yeah,
this is still going on around us. And then also to speak to your point about, like the duality and like, yeah, like the devil and God, right? Or I'm sorry, well, yes, that, or heaven and
exactly.
hell, or
Yeah,
all those things,
exactly.
is to really walk that middle path, that it's not, here or there. It's really about, walking that middle path
Right.
of, it's not heaven or hell. And I mean, you can make it either way
Well,
too.
mommy and daddy made me, and now it's time for me to graduate. Right? The polarities generated you. Without those polarities, you would not be here. Right? I don't care what
Yeah.
transgender, whatever thing you believe. Like at the end of the day, we needed this masculine and feminine polarity to unite. And when the sun and the moon fall into eclipse for each other, they create a ring, they get married, and that's the birth. And then this birth, this pregnancy, it leads to life. Isis, Osiris make Horus. This is our horizon. Horizon is you. You are literally the middle path. You are the creation. Everything we're experiencing here is creation. So, this Satan and Jesus character are literally just mommy and daddy. So, if you want to keep playing with mommy and daddy, that's fine. But then you'll never be able to honor them for what they are and what they're here to teach you, which is to eventually leave the house. It's eventually to be on your own. This is the Jesus story literally told to you. As a child carpenter, left, goes to the ancient mystery schools, learns hermeticism, whatever shit you believe in, right? It's the concept of graduation. and you can't experience, self. You can't experience self truly if you're always tethered to this mommy daddy polarity. And that's becoming very popular today, and I talk about this a lot in my live streams. Like, I have nothing against a person like Andrew Tate or Donald Trump. It doesn't serve me to have an opinion about a being I've never even met, at least not in this lifetime. All I can get from anyone that I absorb their information or their stream of consciousness, all I can get is the utility I decide to take away. Or I could let them alter my emotions, right? I could make myself get angry when Joe Biden can't pull together a full sentence. I could get aggressive. I could get aggravated, right? Or I could just decide that this is unimportant for where I'm standing within my purpose. But to get back to the core idea here, all Andrew Tate is for this person that's worshiping him is he's daddy. He's the daddy replacement. And I know this is a super tough conversation, like for most. Like, a lot of people don't want to hear what I'm saying. And that's exactly why I talk about it. Because if there's anything that I could do here on the world stage, is talk about
Yeah.
the most uncomfortable shit that we're avoiding all the time. Because once we finally face that, on the other side, there's detox. There's like, holy shit, I could finally feel into it for myself without this filter. And this filter is really, for me, what's allowed me to look at life the way that I have, because I knew I had the filters. I'm sure you now were aware of yours. Now, to have that level of compassion for everyone else around us and to know that they have those filters too is where you start to go back to that middle path. So instead of going, oh, this dumb NPC who doesn't know shit, like, you remind yourself that you are that same exact person, right? I think that that technology of compassion is something that we need to tap into more. And the more that we practice that, the more we become in relationship with everyone instead of like an experiment. And that's super tough. Right now in our world, as we transition through ages, we're going to see more conflict than we've ever seen. And that conflict is going to be at the, like, in the household level. We saw this with C19, right? How many people had divorces, relationships, like all sorts of division. And it was over minutia. It was over like your opinion about the V or your opinion about something Fauci said. It's like, why are we letting these people get in between us and our communities? And the answer is, it's because you want them to. You
Yeah.
like drama. You like tug of war. You like the fencing. It's fun for you. You want there to be that type of energy until you decide that I don't want to play that anymore, you know? So that's huge. These are all like really important discussions, and I hope it inspires more people to have those discussions with their people instead of avoiding it, because I know that's the number one thing we do. We like, I know I can't speak this way with my friends and family, and I'm like, well, you can just compassionate and know the truth is that it might not stick, but it doesn't mean change that opportunity, because it's always an opportunity. Just like it could happen for you. I've had conversations with people that are 75 years old that they woke up during C19. Like, that shit's
Yeah.
powerful, bro. There was nothing negative about those 2 years. It was an incredible opportunity to just crack open, to get that ego shell cracked open. It's happening in so many people. It was a gift. It's literally called Corona, right? The sun, the crown. This was a spiritual 2 years. I know it sucked for a lot of people. I know that it was weird. I know, like, you're in an interesting kind of position in it all because of the story you shared. But now on the
Mhm.
other side of it, what did it lead to? It led to all of this extracting or mining of consciousness. And I'm sure you now could look at it like it was more a gift and a blessing than it was something harmful.
Yeah, 100% on that. Again, going back to, that video, and just relating it, about Corona, if it really was the first seal, right? And talk about, like, if a lot of people, I think, read Revelation and, like, oh, such doom and gloom. Well, I look at that, if that really was the first seal opening, like, how much I was gifted in that. Yeah, it was a very interesting time that we all went through, right? But speaking on myself, sure, it was a very challenging, hard time, but it 100% brought me to today where I am, and what I believe today and what I speak on, would I have been would I've had this knowledge or wisdom, or would I be speaking to people about what I think today? Then no, I don't think so. I would have just been, living like not in the greatest marriage and not in the greatest like headspace. And it's hard because what's the point of even thinking about what could it have been? It doesn't matter because where I am is like right here, right now. And I am extremely grateful. And I talk a lot about that on my podcast, that extremely grateful for what has unfolded in my life to bring me to here. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think,
important.
C19 did that for a lot of people, and like, like it was a challenging time, but there are so many people now who are going after their dreams. And yeah, maybe it was a challenging time, and maybe some people did lose their jobs, or yeah, marriages and things, but
Yeah.
they're now living a completely different life and are happy.
Well, what beautiful thing doesn't have challenge,
Yeah.
right? Like, what awesome thing doesn't have challenge? All of the great experiences we've had it was never seamless and easy, and no. It's like it's a bumpy, gravelly, pothole-filled road, and at the end of it, you're like, "Okay, my tire didn't completely pop, but we're still okay." Like, and we got to where we got to go. And usually that's like, yeah, it's like the most difficult hike always has the most beautiful view, and whether it's because you're exhausted at the end or because it literally is subjectively beautiful, like, it's not important, it's that there is some effort here. And I think, one thing that I could bring up, and we'll see where it goes, is somebody was asking me, like, what are the two dynamics that you're feeling right now about humanity? And I don't like to be judgmental and label things, but like they were pressing me to just make a choice. And I said, well, we want, like, a majority of people are either Karens, like they think they deserve everything. Like it's that I deserve energy, or it's this like hustle work to the bone, like kind of put up too many boundaries and like bury your head in it to the point where you can't see the clear skies anymore, you know? It's like those two things, the hustle culture and the I deserve Karen culture. Those are the two polarities that people are navigating right now. And in the midst of all of that, C19 created new opportunities like gig work. So now people are doing Uber Eats and, whatever country people are listening, Deliveroo, or there's so many of these services where you're now seeing people commit to that as their full-time thing. And the businesses have reopened, some of them are gone forever, but like they've decided to keep up with that gig work. We've also seen things like OnlyFans. Like that shit blew my mind when I found out how many new OnlyFans accounts were created post C19. My skull cracked open. I was like, holy shit, dude. I didn't know people were so quick to just start taking off their clothes for some money. Like, people are talking a lot of smack about porn stars and people in the entertainment industry. I'm like, look at the OnlyFans numbers, dude. Like, a lot more people are down for this than you think. And if we want to avoid that because it's an uncomfortable conversation, then I don't know what to tell humanity, because we're getting, this is just the beginning. We're there, man. Like, wait till we
Yeah.
get more AI, more robotics. Like, this is just getting started. We're not in Aquarius yet. Like, perhaps you have your own take on that, and it could be tied into this story through Revelations and perhaps some of Jason's work. I don't really keep up with his great work, due
Okay.
to what I have going on in my life, but I'm kind of in my own decode of that. We're not quite there, but we have the infrastructure laid out beneath us, and many of
Mhm.
the Aquarian essence, many of the Aquarian instruments are now in the hands of the people in the band. It's just the conductor hasn't gotten up yet and told them to start playing the sheet music. The sheet music was written a fucking billion years ago, by the way. That is your
Yeah.
scripture. That is your Torah, your, Talmud. That is your Quran. That is your Bible. Like, whether you're religious or not, that was the sheet music. Okay. That's why it's so fascinating to decode scripture, especially if you're not religious and you just look at it purely from a wise spiritual text, because then it will reveal to you what's going on there. But yeah, the final kind of point on all of this is like we have been given all these new opportunities in a new landscape, and if there's one opportunity that, or if there's one thing we could do right now, it's just be honorable, because I think there's going to be a ton of temptation, like so much temptation. And yeah, I watched this show recently. I don't know if you've checked it out. I think it might only be available in certain countries, so you got to use a VPN. But it's called Humans, and it's on Netflix, and it is fucking wild. Like they show you a world that I very much think we're gonna be moving into, and I'm not saying we're moving into Hunger Games. I'm not saying we're moving into like Ready Player One. Like, I think this Humans show might be the closest thing to where I intuitively, and like if I went within and just closed my eyes and imagined, it's a world that looks very much like our world today, very much, but we've decided to do this robot thing full head on. And we weren't aware that the only thing that's going to really take this to a wrong, make a wrong turn in all of this is conscious AI. Like, not conscious, not the typical AI, but when you put consciousness in a body and you give it genitalia and you give it like all the sensory opportunity, and you give it components of the human brain, like when you start adding in these, there's a reason our amygdala keeps us safe. There's a reason for the frontal cortex, and like all of, when you start giving that to a robot, that shit's going to go in a totally different direction. And I think we will be the cause of that, and the reason why is because the human being likes pushback. We don't know that we like it, but we actually do. I know that this is like a weird place to go, but
No,
this
I
again,
like
it
it.
kind of it touches on a lot of things. Like in this show, they're showing you how like eventually we would turn these robots into like sex robots, but we don't like somebody to just be like ready and like immediate about it. Like there needs to be some sort of like, so you could only imagine how weird it gets after that. They start building them
Yeah.
to be like in that particular way, like have some pushback, and it just unfolds into all these new layers, and they become so human like because it's made by humans. So I don't think there's self-thinking AI. I think it will just become more humanly programmed because humans will desire it to be more like them, which is a very fallible, weird, inconsistent, and dominating creature. That's definitely what we are. It's undeniable. If you gave us all the money in the world, we would start doing things that are very disharmonious with the well-being of our species. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, I could go so many directions with that.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a trailer for that, and I'll have to give that a watch. I was watching, and this is a while ago, like, was it Westworld was kind of like that, right? Where they were making like the robots, more human like, and people were getting like didn't know though, and then they were having, they kind of realize the robots realized that they had a consciousness. Did you ever see that show?
Actually, I saw like 2 episodes, and then if for whatever reason, like I didn't have a subscription to the platform it was on, and then I just forgot about it. But I remember
It
seeing it
kind
and
of
being
started to
like,
suck. Yeah, I thought it kind of started to suck after a couple seasons, but that's just my opinion.
yeah, I'm very yeah, no, I feel you. Like I'm very cautious on how I use this bit of spare time. Like I try to stay creative, but whenever I find something that is just like obviously revealing some sort of runway that we're about to be landing on or taking off from, I'm like, okay, this might be worth it. And Westworld was pretty fascinating. The couple episodes that I watched, I could see where they were going with it, and I could tell that there was maybe some twists and turns that I obviously didn't get to see. But yeah, I've heard Logan talk about it a couple times. I've heard a couple people that I respect share some of their own take on it. And like, would that be weird if it was really going that way? Like, would it be? You know how many times in my life where I'm in like a cafe and I'm looking around and I'm like, I feel like I'm in the Truman Show. I'm like, is anyone alive here? Like, what is this? All paid actors? And then I heard Kanye say this one time. He's like, "You're all paid actors." And it really took me a moment. I was like, damn, like there's something to that. Obviously, there's more context, but we are, aren't we? Like, how many real ones are out there? How many people are willing to just put it all on the line, regardless of the money involved, or regardless of the contract or the agreeability or the making people like them? So, one thing that's super positive to say about everything I just mentioned is what's going to be the most valuable currency in the new age is authenticity.
I was just
Because
gonna say that's go ahead.
No, I'll just finish it just by saying that because it's gonna be so artificial and so too much leveraging on AI and the robotics, and there's gonna just be too much of that, and I feel one of the things about the Aquarian age that's it's a truth of mine, maybe people will disagree, but it's impossible to be fraudulent in the Aquarian age. It will be very tough to scam people. It will be nearly impossible. You won't be able to have that scamming shit going on because there'll be digital identities. They'll lock that down really well, which means that all the scammers now are going to get they're going to get revealed. It's a beautiful thing. We're about to watch
Yeah.
all the fraudulent stuff surface. We're about to see all the scammers surface, right? But then at the same time, we're going to see authenticity is like the phoenix rising from those ashes. In the new age, bro, authenticity is going to be the most valuable currency. You're going to really desire that. You know, you're going to not desire a specialist as much as you desire authenticity. You're not going to want to go to a doctor anymore. You're not going to want to go to the hedge fund, financial advisor. You're not going to want to go to the tax official. You're not going to want to go to the lawyer. You might choose AI over all those things, by the way. But the thing that you'll value the most is authenticity. That's the thing that's going to be just a currency that has no possible dollar amount. And that's a really beautiful thing, I think. I think that's, even though some of what I said might seem a little bit dark, I think that's a way brighter light that'll shine on that.
Yeah, and there always is, right? Like a brighter light into whatever goes on in this world. There's always going to be, the other side. And um, that's why I like listening to you so much, especially in your lives, is, how authentic you are and um how you really speak from your heart. And I try to be the same. I mean, I just, I kind of am just who I am, and like whether people, accept that or not, it doesn't matter to me. I just try to always like speak truth. And someone told me before, and I don't know how true it is, but like on a frequency level, like you would think the number one, I don't know if it's emotion would be the right word, would be love, but it's actually authenticity is supposed to be like the highest frequency or something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that, and this isn't to challenge you because you just brought it up almost with skepticism at the same time. It's like, it's very egoic for us to want to measure those sorts of things. Like every time I ever get brought that kind of stuff where somebody's like, fear is more lower vibration than, I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. Maybe
bro,
they're
like,
measuring I think you talked about
because
this, like measuring the water and the crystals and stuff. Didn't you talk
yeah,
about
like,
that?
yeah, we're
Yeah.
wild, man. Like, we're wild. We like cut open a lemon. We're like, this lemon has 8 seeds in it, so it's better than the one with five. It's like, let's move on. I talk about this often with the whole 432 hertz and all that. It's like,
Mhm.
we're measuring hertz. It hurts. When I punch you, it hurts. Why are we measuring the damage done? Like, let's just move past, then it can't hurt you anymore. It hurts you because you know about it. You know because all is mental, all is mentis. This is the mind. Don't let your mind control you. Like, let your heart be tapped into all this stuff. I just think we're getting a little bit off the path when we start to, yeah, I don't know what it is. Is it the new agey teachings that
I was
almost
just gonna
wanted
say
to,
that.
it has
Yeah, it
become more
was.
molecular in a sense. It's like wanted to take everything and separate it somehow, but then at the same time talk about how there's less ego in that. I'm like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, there's
Doesn't,
a lot in that
inconsistent.
new age. There really is a lot on that, and it's overwhelming, how much information is out there on some things. At least I get overwhelmed by it, and that is usually when I'm just like, "Okay, whatever." Like, I'm just gonna,
Sure.
Because yeah, when you start listening and you hear people say like, "Oh, you shouldn't listen to music and this hurts," or this and that, and it's like, well, you know, even if it's a pop song, and I'm not saying I really like, pop music, but there might be a
Sure.
song and I'm not thinking like, "Oh, but what, hertz is this at?" Like I just like the song. I just like dancing to it. So what does it matter, you know?
It's immediately showing you that it wants to take you out of feeling and put you into the mind. Because what it's by default doing is saying, "Hey, do you know that it's not in that frequency that we believe is superior to the other?" And you're just sitting here being like, "I like the fucking song, man. Why can't I just like the song? Why does it have to be your measurement system that you were taught by Eastern spiritualism, who is also plagiarizing that shit from somewhere else?" It's so silly. Just all of us make music and stop being so molecular about everything. I think that that's a really fun thing to talk about, and I know that it's a super uncomfortable thing that I bring up in a lot of my lives about different kind of things that hit an apex, many of these kind of ideas. I hear it all the time of somebody being like, you know, unless you meditate, you're never going to be able to avoid the ego. It's like just being able to say such a thing shows that you've now prioritized one form of something over the other forms. Like, I've watched my mom wash dishes. I've never seen somebody in a more meditative state. I've seen fucking gurus in full lotus with trying so damn hard to make believe that they're accessing some sort of fuck that, man. I've watched like grandma making some like pasta just in the zone. Like meditation is when you're in flow state. It's not when you're forcing yourself to sit calmly in a dark or, you know, that's forced. You're pushing yourself because you need to, because you have no control over the access to this flow. You need to come up with a technique or some sort of thing to put you there. And again, like people hate when I talk about this, but I'm like, but didn't I just liberate you then? I told you that you don't need that shit. You can be folding clothes and meditating. You could be peeling oranges. You could be, in your garden. Why make it about something that Eastern spiritualism taught you? And also coming back to what you said before, why can't my meditation be playing guitar? Why can't I just like that song like you said before? I know it might not be the perfect hertz that you think is best, but still. And that's where I think talking about the ego and the way that I've been trying to talk about it, and the idea of like, it's not that we should have no ego, it's that we should kind of work on the healing of the ego and empowering of the ego. See, when you have a strong ego, you'll never let somebody say such a thing like that to you and be able to influence you. Meaning, if you have a strong ego and somebody says, this song isn't in 432 hertz, and then you say, well, I like it, and they say, well, it's bad for you, and then you go, well, I like the song. That's not you avoiding truth. That's you literally being like, well, I'm not going to dislocate from my feeling state to make room for your imagination.
Mhm.
I'll say it again. I am not going to dislocate from my feeling state for your imagination. This is my reality. I'm trying to feel through it. Thank you. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we have today is very weak egos where somebody says, well, no, it's bad for you at that frequency. And you go, oh, okay, I'll stop listening to it then. What difference is that than somebody that's a surgeon or whatever telling you to wear a mask because it prevents you from a virus that they also said will still be contractable and spread? It's no different, man. You're allowing something to be the puppet master to your choices, and you're removing yourself from it all. So that's why I always say that ego is the portal to your intuition. Like it is literally the portal to that. Once you get back there, you show up. Like the Tiffany shows up instead of the Tiffany becoming whatever, solution that everyone else wants her to be. I think that that's pretty clear that the world we're surrounded by likes being told what to do. They like fitting in. They like feeling this sense of they're a part of something, of course. And then once they start to show their true colors and somebody has an opinion or a judgment of that, they go, "Oh, well then I must be the one who's wrong. I must be the one who isn't." Bro, that's not safe. And if I can talk of any one community that I've seen that happen the most with, it's the stuff behind Eastern spiritualism. It's the communities that do the ayahuasca retreats and all of these other, like, the crystals and the talking about the hurts, and it's like, damn, bro, like, you're missing the mark here. Like, you missed the plot. This spiritualism thing was never about all that stuff. It's cool if you like it. It's cool if you're into it, but you can't just let one man dictate all of your thoughts and all of your truths and you're gone from it all because he says it's bad or she says it's bad. It's like, what about if you like it though?
Yeah. I mean, and it's interesting too, even that I've seen it with, you know, healthy eating lifestyle. You'll see it like, okay, eat organic, and then it goes over to like the far side, right? Of like, I mean, I've seen people say like, don't use this toilet paper because the
Yeah.
chemicals of the toilet paper, and I'm like, like, where are we going with it? Like,
How
you're
far do we
taking
want
it
to
to
take
this,
it?
yeah, like how far, to where like, I've read things like, don't put polyester on your body. It's like, dude, I have to get dressed and not everything I own is 100% cotton and wool, So
And
it's,
who's the one who gets to determine that the cotton and the wool is better for you? Like,
yeah,
who's the guy that gets granted the permission to be the spokesperson of truth on clothing materials?
yes.
Is
And it's all
right?
that.
It always
And it's,
becomes that. It has to be that because people want daddy. We talked about it a bit ago. People
yeah,
like having daddy around. They like having an enforcer, somebody who sets the rule book for them. That's why religion worked so well. That's why it still works. People always like
yeah,
having a guy in the sky. They want to have some rules written for them so that they could feel like, oh, okay, well, if I just do this and I do this, I get to have whatever bliss, happiness, money, success, whatever. But you don't realize the economy that's at play here is way bigger than that. It is a cosmic economy, and it's all of your prana goes to the enforcer and it leaks out of you. And you never get to feel into your own prana anymore because everything is like, am I wearing the right clothes? Am I eating the right fruit? Am I eating? Is it this time of year that I should be doing? It's all thoughts, it's all mind. And you get so separate from just feeling or being anymore. You don't even know that you've become more numb than where you started. See, this is why a symbol of wisdom is the crown of thorns. It literally is such. It's digging its horns like into you. It's thorns, excuse me. It's digging into your scalp. It's fucking painful to have awareness and knowledge. Blood is running streaming down your forehead into your eyes. It sucks, man. Like, it is really such. But then once you realize that, oh, this crown of thorns doesn't need to be physical, it could become spiritual, then it turns into a halo of light and the real you shows up after that. See, if you're wondering about the polyester and the cotton and the day of the week to do this, and if the moon is in Gemini, what do I? That's you're wearing the crown of thorns, bro. This shit's digging into your scalp, and you're always walking on eggshells. You're wondering, like, should I be doing this now? Should I be doing this then? Should I set up my business today? Should I create a course now? Like, it's always going to keep you with that crown of thorns. Like, yes, you are conscious. Yes, you do know, but you're putting yourself through so much pain and suffering through analysis. It's like paralysis by analysis, that kind of sort of deal. It's really such. I call it being Medusa'd. Like, Medusa is the concept of you've turned yourself into stone because of your fears about what is the right way. What is the right way to do it? Because I work with so many clients and I help so many people like create businesses and stuff like this. Like, that's the number one thing I work with them, like, just to take that kind of that leap, just to take that leap, but in the process convert that crown of thorns into a halo. That's you. You get to do that. No guru, no shaman, no fucking pope, no deity could ever do that for you. Only you could do that for yourself. And that to me, it's just through healing the ego, becoming more centered in self. I know that sounds so horrible, right? Like everyone hates this idea of self centered. No, you want to be repositioned back in you because when you are not centered in self, you are astrally projecting into some other force that has nothing to do with your purpose or you. And you're just allowing it to control you like a puppet. So, we do need to be reseated back in our own bodies for a moment. It's like the spiritual community spends so much time trying to levitate and trying to be grounded at the same time that it's like they never have made any actual progress through it all. And maybe progress isn't the right word, but it's just this sense of allowing others to be as they are and to for you to individually, reconnect back to all the stuff that surrounds you without having this desire to control it, but also not letting it control you in the process.
Yeah, and there's so much that you speak on, and I took your expansion mastermind course, and that helped me so much of working on my mindset and putting so much back into myself and listening to myself. There is just so much that I have gained for that. So much so that even in my day to day, if I'm at work and, whatever gossip starting to happen, and I'll think of you and I'll think like, oh, don't leak your prana to this, like that's not where you want to go with that, and that helps so much to preserve your own energy. And then another thing you talk about too is like when I'll go home and come home for the evening, right when I'm getting ready to go to bed or whatever, I'll kind of rehash my day and see where I was at the end of the day. Where were my thoughts, and I love that saying that you say, stalk yourself, and to really view yourself. And because so many in the early, and I fall back into it. So I'm, obviously no one's perfect,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'll, get back into that and I'll think, oh, I was critical of that person or I was critical of myself. And,
Mm,
like then to start the next day and, how I really like prepare myself into going into the day. Like I decide how my day is going to be. So I made that a part of my morning. Like, and another thing I love that you say too is like you script the outcome and fall in love with that process. So, for just on a day to day. And I do that, day to day, or I'll do that, for long term goals or like semi short term goals. But
mm,
even for my day, I'll think like, what kind of day am I going to have today? And I just picture my day and, deflecting on things. And like, normally the end of my day is really good when I like really decide on like, what am I going to have today?
yeah. How do you want to make it? Yeah, and this idea of because you brought up you brought up three different things, and what was the second thing you brought up again?
Oh, goodness. What did I bring up? I don't even know.
Yeah, that's
I
okay.
talked about mindset,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mindset,
Yeah,
what else
the
do I
idea behind some of those, because you brought up like the gems, those are the things that I
talk
always make a
yourself?
yeah, yeah, stalk yourself. Yeah, yeah. So people hear that and that word stalk, it like always has this like weird kind of vibe to it. And just to provide some clarity here and perhaps like more utility, it's that typically during your day and after the end of your day, like when you're settling down, maybe you getting home from work or whatever, you tend to stalk everyone else. You're going on Instagram to look at what Kim Kardashian's, like you're not even in you anymore. You've given up so much of you to the work, to the job, to whatever, and then you come back and you have this sense of like, okay, now I get to decompress. But typically that's the best moment. Well, that is the typical moment for you to now go and stalk everyone else. And the point that I'm trying to make here is like, because you know me by now, that I'm trying to work with the modern man. Like I'm aware that we do have technologies. We are moving in this direction. So there's no room for the woo woo spiritualism of avoiding the truth and the inevitable of like we're becoming more technologically advanced. We're moving into the Aquarian age. We just got to get you. We got to get used to this stuff. All I recommend is instead of it being a weapon formed against you, it could be a tool that you utilize. Right? We don't need to talk shit about it because it's somebody's imagination told you that it'll be controlling and horrible, like with blockchain technology and crypto, right? How many years did we hear that? Like I even remember when I got into crypto, people were like, "Oh, crypto is a scam or it's going to enslave you or whatever." And I'm like, "Bro, like the amount of money you could have made by putting a small amount in this thing right now and then just over time taking some profits. Imagine how much your life could have changed." Right? We can't deny that. We're all working for money. Like it's a part of the being in the simulacrum. You have to earn, right? So there's so much avoiding, but at the same time, this most common form of avoiding is not putting the mirror up, right? Like not going, okay, where am I at with this? It's so easy for me to stalk everyone else, but it is a little bit challenging to stalk thyself. It requires a technique and a practice and a strategy and something that we're not taught anymore. So I've practiced this on myself and it just kind of became a big piece of my philosophy. I said, "Oh, snap. I know this kind of sucks to hear because the word stalk has such a dark vibe to it, but to take two terms and stick them together and see the effect that it's made on for myself and so many people is really awesome." But I know sometimes when people hear this initially, they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I didn't have that feeling. I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stalk myself."
Well,
I
that's that's
personally didn't have.
that's awesome that you get it, that you resonated with it, because that's one of the concepts that I've gotten some pushback on, where people are like, I don't really understand, and yeah, I get it. I'm trying to make some short and sweet ideas. That way it's memorable and yeah, it's always that stuff that sticks and it makes you go, oh, okay, I could apply this now. It has utility, right? That's the big piece of that
Yeah.
course that I released, that Expand Your Mastermind course. I'm trying to have as much utility as possible. I'm not trying to wow you with how much I know. That's unimportant. Like, I believe man is hoarding information. We're like a hoarder of data. We have like libraries full of coffee stained books that we're never even going to be able to open again because they're pried shut. That's your memory bank. We rarely use much of the data in there. I'm trying to create stuff that is not about teaching you more. It's about learning how to use the stuff you've always had. It's like spraying some WD-40 on that rusted tool so that we can finally go back in and use it again. That's probably the thing that might be the most encouraging about all this, is because many people, when they find this stuff, they get they're like, "Oh my god, it's too much information, it's too much stuff." But some people are really like maybe vibing more and resonate more when they're reminded that you already have it all. Like it's all there. It's already all within you. The hardest part is trusting yourself, right? Like the hardest part is trusting you over trusting everything else, the distractions. So yeah, those are some really key points that you brought up, and it means a lot that you remember them, but ultimately that you practice them.
Yeah, and I think, a lot maybe people have an issue with that word too, I don't know, but, I think people have a really hard time, like, seeing I don't know if it's the dark side, I'm, trying to think of a word, but, like, a side of themselves that they don't like. Like, some people don't they just wanna ignore that part of themselves, and it's like, I
Yeah,
do shitty things sometimes, and, I think it's really important, like, to reflect and admit, like, yeah, that was really shitty that I did that. And to kind of understand, like, why did I do that and what made me feel that way and why. So I like the idea of stalking myself. That has really helped me in my journey of um, kind of becoming, or not even kind of, but to become more heart based is to why do I have those walls up? Why do I snap at people? Why do I do the things that I do?
sure.
And
Yeah,
to let go of that, to be able to see that dark, it like that shadow self, that shadow part of yourself. I don't think people really like to sit in that part of themselves. They just want to say, or they want to justify why they did that. Well, I did that because that person cut me off in traffic, and I just
Right.
wanted to get back at them, right? It's like, well, because I used to be a crazy person on the road. I mean, not really. I mean, I wasn't like cutting people off, but yeah, if somebody cut me off, I would be like, "You a hole," or whatever.
Yeah, because
And
we're
now when
taught
people
that.
cut me off, yeah, now when people cut me off, I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like, whatever. I'll get to work when I got to get to work. And, if you're living in that thing, and I don't know what they're going through, right? Like, maybe it's like if they get one more late, like they're getting fired,
Yeah,
So it's just
sure.
like,
Yeah, like, to be able to
you do what you got.
instantaneously compassionate it in the moment saves so much energy. Like,
Yeah, it really does.
we're and we're all driving a car, like, your body's a car, and at the end of the day, like, if you're leaking all this prana day after day after day after day, you're, like, pushing on the gas and as hardcore as you can, and you're pushing on the brake pedal as hardcore as you can, you're gonna fuck this shit up, like, the transmission's gonna give out, and too many people, they do that. They stretch themselves to the furthest corners of the room, and then they wonder, like, "Why can't I figure it out?" And it's like, because you're choosing to leak all this energy into these absolutes. And also, you want to control everything. Like, the reason you're offended that somebody cut you off is because you think that your time is more valuable than theirs. But they're doing the same thing to you. Like, we're all just
Yep.
kind of competing for some imaginary game. We're already in the Hunger Games. We're all just
Yeah.
competing for something. Like, everywhere
Yep.
we go, we're in a line waiting for something. We wish to be next, right? And when we're deep in that line, we huff and puff, and we have this, yeah, and it's like, okay, man, well, that's just it. Like, it's a test of your beingness. Like, how present can you be about it, and what are you going to take from it all? And yeah, to be able to practice some of these little things like you just brought up, like perhaps somebody has to get somewhere more, they're more important at this time than what I'm going through. Like, maybe they're about to be late and that was their last strike and they're about to get fired, you know? Maybe there's a baby that's being rushed to the hospital, a mother that's pregnant being rushed out. Like, who the fuck knows? But don't act like your time and you are more valuable, because every time you do that, the matrix takes from you. Like, that's something to talk about that I know people might enjoy, but most people, they're like, "Oh, no, it can't be that way. It's not that." It's like, just think about it. When you act the way that you just explained before, where you're just chill about it all, like when you don't have that tension, you get rewarded instantly with stuff. It's like, it's so sick. It's so awesome how it works. Every time for me, especially, like, I've noticed setting boundaries is huge. It's a powerful practice. So I don't take any paid sponsorships. I don't have any collaborations with any tech companies or anything like that. Like, and I get a lot of these emails, like, very enticing, like, we'll pay you $15,000 to, like, promote our whatever, it's like whatever shit, right? And I'm just like, I always delete those emails. I don't give it any of my energy. And it's not because I think that's wrong to do, because I understand that's part of that business's advertisement budget. Like, they know that if they put their money towards giving their product or a time slot to an influencer or something, that is just advertising to them. There's nothing evil about this. There's nothing wrong about this. And if there's a content creator or an artist out there that is partnered with somebody, then great. I'm not trying to speak badly or judge you. But my point is that I've noticed that every time I just decline those things, I'm instantly like, things are just driven my way. Every time that I just say no. And now it's not because, again, I think that stuff is wrong. I just don't think that that's my path. I'm an
Mhm.
artist. I want to create my stuff. I want to promote my stuff. I have nothing wrong with uh, the free market economy. I have nothing wrong with capitalism. You do it in your way, in your most honorable way. And I also can't change the capitalist system that's built behind us, like this crony capitalism. Neither do you. You have zero control over this. It is what it is. But I just feel most honorable as a creator and an artist, and I want to share that, and I don't want to be used to deliver somebody else's product to the people. Like, I want to promote my thing. And I know that that might take longer to do, that might whatever, but like, ever since I started becoming really clear on that, like, not wavering at all, like very clear, all the financial stuff started just taking its course. Like it just sorted itself out. And I don't need to stress myself with, am I going to read this product advertisement good enough? Are they going to cut me from the deal? Are they going to, like when I see these guys that are like on these million follower podcasts and they're reading 16 advertisements, I'm like, you're doing a Viagra pill ad. You're doing a mattress ad. You're doing a keto cereal brand ad. Do you even like what's going on right now? Like I couldn't imagine myself doing that. It's just I couldn't imagine myself doing it. So I want to inspire more people to know that like you can do it in your way and don't be discouraged. If people say no to you, don't get mad like somebody gets mad getting cut off in the car in this business game or in this entrepreneurial game. Like if somebody avoids you, like it's probably because you're really avoiding them. Like this matrix is like perfect, man. It's so synchronistic and it's so beautiful, and the boundaries are necessary. There's going to be people that give you opportunities, there's going to be people that say no, there's going to be feelings where it might be too risky, all of that. Like if you just keep going with your intuition, it all sorts itself out. But I think right now we're in a moment where this fraud thing is big, the scamming thing is very big. A lot of these tech companies are just banging everyone over the head with the cash register, like trying to milk everyone for something, right? And that's going to be interesting to navigate. Somebody like you who's doing podcasting and the people that are out there that are doing these digital platforms, like we're just getting started. This is probably the best opportunity to build a foundation of online presence and to just be super authentic about it and create products and create stuff, and like people are really going to resonate when it's like that. I think in like a couple of years we're going to cringe when we watch a podcast and we hear an advertisement being read.
Yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend, she was, like, suggesting to me, she's like, you can get this, these ads, and it was something about, like, electrolyte mix, and I'm like, "I don't believe in that." That people and whatever, like you said, like, people wanna sell that, that's fine, but, like, in my opinion, you're spending $40 a month, for a subscription electrolyte when you can make your own electrolyte mix. Like, I just can't get into
Yeah.
that kinda stuff,
Yeah,
with
drink
a lot of the
coconut water
advertising.
and drink lemon water and like yeah.
Yeah, like, I just can't get into that. Like, that's kinda, like, against of who I am. I mean, yeah, I consume, I buy things, but if there are things that I can do on my own, like, that's what I like doing. I like doing stuff, on my own. Like, got rid of, like, all cleaning products, all, like, the bleach crap, and I just
Sure.
make my own stuff. And it's just
Yeah.
been, really cool to get into that kinda
Yeah, and
stuff.
don't get me wrong, I mean, I don't promote many things, but I do bring up some things that I get asked, "What do I use?" And I don't think there's
Mhm.
anything wrong with sharing that. Like, if there's a company that makes liquid magnesium or that you like, then tell people about it. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you start
Yeah,
opening yourself up to financial, stuff that's tied to companies that you don't even believe in and you don't even like your core philosophy isn't even based in, then that means you'll always have to be in a lie. You'll always have to be making some shit up to keep that advertisement going. And it's like, that's fucked, man. Like, people don't realize the selling your soul is very much that effectively. So it's clear that you're conscious to this and you're avoiding that. And I think that's powerful. And I'm not anti partnerships. I think that people should do whatever they think is best for them. But we're in a time right now where we're just still figuring it out. Like we have the training wheels on of what this new economy is going to be, what this new thing is going to be. And yeah, I think podcasting is really lucrative and it's really dope. But what was your because I don't really know too much about what this podcast is and what you're doing. I have a little bit more time to hang out with you, but like what's been your journey and your mission behind this, and what are you, what's
yeah,
what would you say that represents you?
yeah, so funny, I started it I can't even remember why I was like, "I'm gonna start a podcast." I don't really remember, and I just remember talking about it to some friends, and they were like, "Oh my god, you should totally do a podcast." Like, I just, usually never shut up and, have lots to talk about. Um, and then, I kinda thought like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this podcast about" like, when I was kind of dreaming it up, I'm like, "What do I want it to be?" And it was really just my journey through life and just whatever's going on, my path and the difficulties that I've had and just speaking about them. And it's funny because I think I started my podcast about a year ago. And like those videos that I made a year ago, like I have changed even from a year ago. So it's pretty amazing to see just how much I'm growing through it. And um, for a while, I was like, do I really want to do this podcast? It's taking up time, and I don't know if I always have things to talk about. And really, that's kind of when I came into your course, the mastermind, the expansion mastermind, and you talked a lot about purpose. And, I sat with that for a while and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then I was just like smacked kind of recently of like, you need to put this one episode out. And, I did a bunch of research on it and I did it, and I was like super proud of it and really love it. And um but it made me think like, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for me? Am I doing it for others? And trying to navigate that. And honestly, when I was saying to you about like, and not calling people like, I don't want to call anybody names, but I'm just saying like, unawakened people or awakened or normal people and, more spiritual people, whatever. But I have so many, and I think the world, right, is just the masses are not awakened yet. And I really want to hone in to those people and to get people to start awakening and seeing things so we all can come together. And one of the things that you spoke about that made me think that the reason why this is a scripted reality and things are going on the way they are in like the world stage and everything is because we're not really unified in a consciousness. And that really spoke to me about like just trying to get people to be more conscious, more aware. And, that does come from the self. And to take that time when, yeah, like we are, using so much time to being, and I think like obviously if you go on social media, and I try to do it, if I go on social media, like I set like an intent for myself, like, okay, like I'm intending to go on here and kind of get like brain fucked for a minute, and then I get out. And then sometimes I do get too far into it and I'm like, whoa, what did I just take in there? And I'm really starting to realize that energy, like I just took in like 20 different people's stories. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Um, but, to really get people to get more into yourself. Like, what do you like doing? The more you really do focus in on that, your purpose, and bring that out into the world, whatever it may be. Like, it really is amazing if we can all just do that, and what a world we could really make. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
like my mission statement.
yeah, that's really powerful. That's really powerful stuff. It has a lot of like purpose behind it, and I feel that that's needed right now because so many people are just making these podcasts or doing whatever right now because, like, just purely because. And although that's not necessarily horrible, like it has better intentions than doing something evil or corruptive or manipulative, it's still just like what's the point of doing it then, right? And yeah, clearly you've taken some time to self-reflect and feel out where you are in all of this and take action. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I really just try to be an open book. I probably share too much, and I'm trying to realize that. I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't reveal all that things about me. But I just kind of am that person with anybody who meets me. I don't like just blurt my story out to anybody. But if someone starts asking me questions, I mean, I'll go right into it. Like, yeah, and I'll talk about all my effed up feelings, or all the mistakes and things that I've just learned from. No shame. And yeah, just hoping that that eventually, will, something I say will inspire somebody.
So how has it been like? How long have you been doing this for?
The podcast, I've been doing it for a year, and yeah, I mean, I struggle with getting like it out there to people. Like I create on like Instagram a little bit, and and I struggle with Instagram because there's moments that I feel like, okay, this is how I have to get my word out to people, right? But I also hate Instagram. Like I hate creating reels, or sometimes creativity will strike me and I'll make a funny reel. Like I like to think I'm a pretty funny person, so I try to use my humor in a lot of things. And like I'm sarcastic, so I try to create that way. But, sometimes I don't feel like doing a reel and it takes a lot of my time up, and I don't want to be, um, and I'm just speaking on the female side of it. Like, I don't want to be one of those,
Yeah.
female Instagram, people. Like, I don't have an interest in that. So I kind of struggle with that, like getting what I want out there, but how do I do it?
Mm. Has that been like the main theme that keeps coming up right now? Like just
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
more exposure, getting more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, maybe people are listening to me and they're like, "What is this crazy person talking about?" So I don't, I feel like I just haven't, found my niche, or haven't found, like, I don't want to call them a tribe, but people who just identify. I have friends who like love supporting me and they listen to it, but like a friend is great and I appreciate that, but it's like, how do I get past that? So yeah, that's like what I try to get into, or, and really I don't have the answer. I just kind of am, like you say, like, script your reality, or, script the outcome, and then fall in love with the process, go with the flow. When opportunities come, I take them, I reach out to people who are like minded, to you and other people, to try to bring, more community and more people like into, because that's what I think is great is there are so many people that think along these lines, and, to build that community, I think is, just really important. It just gets out to more people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's tough because it's like the world really wants to be given something specific.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's pretty big. And I work with a lot of people where they like kind of are starting something new. They're trying to gain an audience, and it's the similar excuse me, it's a similar sort of thing of like what how do you grow in a world that's so busy, right? And what I mean by busy, I mean there's just a lot of static. There's a lot of overlapping, like how do you get attention in a world where most people want to just listen to the new Joe Rogan podcast?
Right.
But also everyone has a podcast. Like some footballer has a podcast. Like the
Yeah.
footballer's wife who doesn't even have a job or a profession has a podcast. It's like, why does the footballer's wife have a podcast? What does she talk? But it's like all riding on the coattails of some other algorithmic. Yeah. And then there's money. Like podcasts blow up just because they have quality. I remember when I started, I was using the MacBook speakers. Like, so I didn't have, I wasn't even using the headphones that come with the, like, I wasn't even using the headphone mic. I was literally speaking directly into the MacBook. Um, and I really love the old school MacBooks, the one that you could plug in like multiple OG USB ports. Like they don't even make these things anymore. So I had one of the shittiest microphone setups of all time. And I just went with it. But I had something I think very specific. And I think that's kind of what resonated with people. And still to this day, like a lot of client calls that I get and people that work with me directly, they'll say, well, I found you through crypto, but then it went down all these other lanes. Right. So that's like, not that I'm trying to push any, you know, thing your way in that regard. It's just like something maybe to be open to. Having something more
Yeah.
specific, I think really gets people to go like, oh, okay, that's what I'm showing up for, and then
Yeah.
they'll find you through all the other avenues. Like, what are you about? That kind of just all unfolds through there. And you brought up something where you said like about being too open. I don't think that's the case. I think what people truly love the most is personality. People actually enjoy personality over specialization. Believe it or not, I
Mhm.
think that's happening at a subconscious level. We will take personality over somebody who's incredibly fucking boring and good at something.
True.
Just
Very
naturally.
true.
And we could also see how well personality works in the real world. Like if you're the smartest person, you're not getting the most opportunities. If you're the most beautiful person, you're not getting the most opportunities. Like the most opportunities at scale go to somebody interesting, go to somebody with personality always, because personality will persevere. Personality will figure out a way to continue to get the yes, even though everyone's saying no. Personality will go through the hard shit. Like beautiful people will give up after being told they're not beautiful once. They'll crumble. Like the columns will start to buckle because they're not used to that, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen it time and time again. Like the most successful people in any career field, They're usually somebody where personality shines over the skill. And the reason that we're admiring them is because of personality. We don't give a shit how good Muhammad Ali was at boxing. We remember his personality. We remember him saying the statements that he said outside of the ring, not inside of the ring. Remember that. Like what always
Yeah.
sticks the most with you, what's iconic, what's making you tap into somebody at the core, it's always that personality. So if there's anything that's being like created here, it's how do you showcase personality in a platform in a way that builds community, of course, but that also has some sort of specific framework. And then if you could be open and vulnerable about it, it's like boom, boom, boom. You know, you've knocked out all the most important parts. Like, I think that's very much what my story was. And I don't even show myself for all the reasons that I've decided. It's still allowed this, this to all work out exactly what I wanted because I scripted the outcome, as you said.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah, I
could
think that's
literally
awesome.
do it exactly your way. That's the cool thing. Like, I tell people this all the time. They're like, well, maybe I should do this, or maybe it's just like, but what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? I like to work with people on that. Like, let's do that. Let's do the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, no, you get me.
imagine being Muhammad Ali at a time where like black people weren't even really allowed to like drink from the same imagine like that being a personality in that avatar at that time and still being the fucking greatest. Like,
Yeah.
bro, I don't want to hear it
I
anymore
never
about these
I never
people that
even
are
thought
like
about
people are like, "Oh, I was born in the ghetto. We had nothing. We had to live in the projects." It's like, boo-hoo, dude.
that.
Muhammad Ali, Kentucky, at a time like where clearly, if you were of that color, you were considered nothing.
Yeah.
You weren't considered equal at any level. And then you still become the greatest at what you do? I mean, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like,
never even thought about that.
yeah, it's powerful shit. Like people need to study this stuff and we get too caught up in the entertainment. We like the fight.
Mm.
We like to watch two guys beat the shit out of each other. That's what's like human the thing that magnetizes to the human spirit, sadly. But not for
Yeah.
me. Like for me, the people who inspire me the most, it's always those characters. Like it's always those characters where I was able to put things into context. I think that's what we should be teaching our children too. Like let's put things into the context here because the shiny object is very distracting. It's the pendulum that swings in front of your face. Like if you see somebody beautiful and that's all they have, that's the only value they have, that's hypnotism, right? You need to see beyond that. And when you could do that, when you could see somebody for their spirit, for their aura, it all starts to be much clearer. But like nowadays, we're like, oh, that person's a doctor. They're wearing a white lab coat. They must know what they're doing. Right.
Oh,
But you
yeah.
got to remind yourself, like, they're just going to work. It's another day in the matrix for them. They're collecting a paycheck just like you. I know that they've created some sort of hero story behind them because that's what we all do, right? We all design a reality that suits us as the hero. But the most heroic thing of all time is to just be like, yeah, maybe what I'm doing and what I'm a part of isn't actually what I've been spellcasting myself into believing is the best, and then taking it from there. You know that change over time is so beautiful and so admirable. So I know you brought up earlier that like from year one to year two, there's been adjustments. It's like I'm still adjusting stuff. I just changed my whole live stream layout. You
Yeah.
know, I'm always like continuously going like, how do I want to do it? How do I that's all that matters. How do I want to do it? And I think that's radiant and it's a more attractive energy perhaps.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I do love your lives. I mean, um, I've spit out water before listening to you over, something you said. Really funny.
That's awesome. Yeah, somebody said that I don't know what I said in the last I said something silly in the last Red Pill podcast. I won't repeat it, but yeah, it's like I need to have fun with this, man. We need to have more playtime. Like I am a very serious person, unfortunately. It's my personality. Like it's just the way I've always been. but underlining that serious coding, there's like this I am like a cosmic comedian. Like I want to make everything into just joke. Now, I'm not the greatest at making the present moment a joke. I'm still learning how to be because of the background I have. Like I grew up without a father figure, single mother environment in New York City. You're having to step into this like man role way too young, and naturally you just take on that seriousness. Like if you see people get robbed when you're a kid, or you see people get beat up, see people, yeah, like you see some crazy shit when you're growing up in the streets of New York. So that serious layer of me may not ever go away, but it's also ironically allowed me to see the stuff that maybe we wouldn't find funny to be so much funnier to me. And that I think that playful energy is something I'm working on. I'm working on getting more back there. And yeah, I have that effect where if I say something that is cheeky like that, it tends to make people really burst out laughing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck, man, like I have more fun doing that than I do like looking at charts or I do decoding. I'm like, I feel like that chemistry to have with an audience or with people is so much more yeah, it's so much more who knows, but I've heard that comedians that life of being a comedian actually isn't that awesome. I used to
Yeah.
kind of look more into the life, but maybe it's because they're doing all this traveling and the clubs and
Yeah.
shit.
Travel.
Imagine, yeah, and then you have to be okay with people heckling you, and you have to be okay with people not finding you funny, and then fuck, man, that's a different type of rejection.
Yeah.
At least here on a
Oh, yeah.
podcast, you could just the rejections in the comment section. You know, like it's just like it's text on a screen. But you have somebody
Yeah.
like talking shit at you when you're in a club 15 feet away from them at 2 a.m. Like, fuck that, man. That's a different type of. So, shout out to those out there that have made it through that industry. All of that
Yeah,
stuff's
that's fun.
inspiring, right? Like, when you know that there's these people that persevere through like so much stuff, like, look at the comedian situation. Like, they're not all the most beautiful people. They're not all that talented, but like it's just perseverance. It's like how many people need to reject me before I make this joke funnier?
Mm.
Cuz maybe the joke sucked. Just like maybe my first TA video sucked. Like maybe my first time decoding something like it's okay. But like that energy to just keep building and progressing and not having a finish line, but moreover just having this progress bar. I think that that kind of comes back to that fall in love with the process thing.
100%. That's why I haven't, given up. Like, I just something comes to me and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll talk about this. This sounds interesting to me," you know? And it's just about, yeah, like, just going with it, there is no finality to really anything ever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is somewhat, but, like, not necessarily. You could just always
It's
just keep
just
going.
transformation. Like nothing dies, nothing's born. It's just transforming from one state to the next. And I guess if like we allow that, that's where a lot of the beautiful things happen in our life. Too many of us think things are ending or people are
Mhm.
dying or I've lost this thing. It's like well, if you've lost it, therefore you have possession over it. Therefore you're the god. And is that a fair and just and collaborative world? Or is that you setting the terms and conditions for all? And I think the most common place we abuse this is in a relationship with a partner. Like probably the number one way we drop the ball on that. And it's like I remind myself all the time, like I don't even own the skeleton inside of me. That's just
Yeah.
temporary. Like it's all temporary. This microphone I'm using right now, somebody told me that it's making a crackling noise and I got kind of like emotional because I'm like this microphone has been with me through all of this. It's like a fucking just an item, but
Yeah.
holy shit, it's allowed me to communicate with all these people around the world and do all this stuff, and it's like it has energy, it has a consciousness in a sense,
Yeah.
and it's just me. I'm making a joke right now, but the point here is that like
No. Yeah.
you don't own any of this stuff. Like everything is eventually going to start crackling and buzzing and like it's all
Yeah.
just in it's all kind of going through the same cyclical life cycle of growth, pinnacle, decay over and over and getting comfortable with that I think truly helps us all. Like to not think that there is a finish line. Moreover, there's just a process of transformation.
100%. I think about that a lot with my kids too. Like, I don't own my children. They're not mine.
Right.
Like they are going to go and live their life as they should. And it's just, like a fleeting stage of life. And I think about that now being past like a marriage. I think about that too, about, going forward if I, ever had a serious relationship. And I think about that with marriage. And you brought that up about, just relationships. And it's like, how can you promise forever when you can only promise the moment that you're right in right now? So that has always kind of, or not always, but and I'm not saying that in a way of like, when you meet someone, whatever you go through the emotions and, you get into a serious relationship. I'm not saying like, oh, it just like ends or whatever, but it's, at least it's about getting into that contract, right? About signing a contract saying like making a vow that forever. And it's like, I don't know if forever can ever be promised to
Yeah.
anything or anyone,
Yeah.
like
Why
it
do we
can't.
even want forever? Like, that's an eerie, you know? I tell people this too on the other side of things. Like, if I took you out of body right now and I just turned you into a ball of light, we'll call it soul, like you're just that. I bet so fucking quickly you'll be grasping for air and just wanting to feel again. See, as spirit, as energy in that form, you don't get to have a laughter. You don't get to have crying. You don't get to have an orgasm. You don't get to have the feeling of the best bite of food you've ever, like, all of that is not there. You know, why do you think in Hollywood they're always showing you spirits and ghosts and these, like, you know, paranormal things wanting to now host a body? Why do you think they're showing you that? Because you did the same thing. We all came in spirit into body. That's what we're all doing. And like anyone who's had a deep psychedelic experience where you go timeless, you know, people confuse this with an ego death, but like truly you're just without time momentarily. And other forms of identity could also drizzle away, like your idea of gender or your idea of name or your idea of age. They go. Now, when you're there, you become the softest, most scared version of yourself because you love identity. You actually like knowing that tomorrow will come. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to the biggest, baddest men you've ever seen. They go into that space where they're timeless, and the first question everyone asks is, will I get to go back? Will it be normal after this? It shows you that you actually love this matrix. You love this simulacrum. You think you don't, because the same ego that says, I don't love the Matrix is the same ego that says, I'll love you forever till the end of time in a marriage, right?
Mhm.
It's designing something theoretical for safety. And because it's convenient to feel safe in theory, right? If I
Mhm.
told you that I wanted to take a trip somewhere and I had this awareness that it would be safe and I won't get robbed and there won't be tainted water and there won't be a chance of me getting right, you would think that's a good thing. But that's not the way things go. It's funny, like I'll just share this really quickly. The first time I've ever been robbed in my whole life was in Iceland. It's the safest fucking country on earth. It's like no
That's funny.
robberies, right? Now, it wasn't a bad thing. It was all good. I wasn't harmed. It was very dumb, the whole situation. It was most likely just some drug addicts that were stealing stuff that to sell it. And this is kind of the story that you get a lot of the time in Iceland. Like almost all of the robberies are that. It's just people trying to make some quick money to buy some drugs. It's almost never like harmful. There's really almost no real bad stuff. So, anyways, that was the only time I've gotten robbed, is in the nicest, safest place on earth. So you can set up with your ego this perfect utopia like situation where you're the safe one. But next thing you know, the one opportunity to have some something get spicy might be in the safest place. So you could have the perfect environment, right? But it doesn't mean that the situations or the circumstances of how it unfolds is going to be exactly the way that you envision. So I think that that's powerful stuff for people to realize, like, we all love this experience, and in order to really embrace this experience, we have to give up this wanting to control and put contracts on everything based on a timeline that doesn't even matter, doesn't even exist. And even if it did, you can't do anything about it. Like if there was one thing that could help people, it would probably be like put all of the energy that you give to yesterday and tomorrow into this, into now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That was I'll say this last thing too. That was one of the best things that I've heard in your expansion mastermind course was be here now. That really helped me a lot, and helps me even when I start getting like anxious or something like that. I'm like, but I'm right here. I'm fine. I'm right here right now. So
Yeah.
that was you just have some really great, helpful, really great. You just put out like your channel, everything you do is just awesome. Everything that you offer is just you offer so many different things. That's what I like about you too is, your crypto, you're about, decoding, even working on yourself, health, health like lifestyle, all
Yeah.
the things. You just offer so much. It's so good.
Oh,
So
that really
thank you
means
so
a
much.
lot to me. And I want like everyone who listens to this to know that like I haven't generated any of these ideas. Like I'm not the creator or the founder. I've just been like a bumblebee, like a bee like landing on flowers and just pulling away some pollen every day. Like I think that that's all we can do. And I really want people to be aware that like we're all kind of sharing this data from some source and it's all there. And there is a lot of profound stuff that has come to me through not engaging with content, but it is important for people to know that like most of this stuff is just reminders. Like a lot of it. A lot of the wisdom is stuff that the reason it resonates is because you've always felt that way. Like I and you have always felt that way. There was just some weird filter that was in front of us that was keeping us severed from that feeling, from that knowing. But it's always been there. Like I don't remember who said this, so I can't coin like I forgot who to quote, but it's like we're all suffering with cosmic amnesia. We've always known, right? Since being a baby. It's a joke that I made too, like where the reason I think babies are crying is because they're like, this place sucks. They're like, what the fuck, man? It was so awesome a moment ago, and like that's probably it's just funny. I know that's obviously not the case, but it does very much feel that way. I heard this one guy say that the simulation is like a really bad copy. So I would not be surprised if during whatever lapse of time where we're being pushed through this vacuum in time and space outside of the life and death concepts, we probably get the taste of another copy of this particular copy. And we get to see stuff from like a whole different perspective. I don't know if we get to feel it the same way we get to feel it here in this body, but I really do feel sometimes when we slip through in dreams, maybe for some people. I know that works a lot. Some people it happens when they make music, some people it's tantra, like whatever. There's so many ways to get to that state. There, you're like you're blissed out and all these reminders kind of bubble up and they come back to us. And that's sometimes people I guess are just good at being transparent at those nuggets of wisdom. I don't know if I could call myself one of them, but I guess I've been embracing these ideas, even though sometimes they're pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't have a problem with them. I mean, for me, they're not uncomfortable whenever you talk about things. It makes me think about things, and I appreciate that. I always like, I have a pretty active mind, so I like engaging it all the time.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I have like a couple more minutes. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss before wrapping this up? Any
Oh,
final
well, you know
thoughts?
what? Well, yeah, I'll just tell you one thing real quick, because I know you want to get off or, need to get off. But, I did that fasting. And, that was really awesome, and it's funny because just talking, like I was saying about, like, normal people, they're like, "You can't, like, not drink something for multiple days," and I'm like, "Well, I mean, I kinda did, and,
Right.
I mean, I got through it." But, I thought of you because when I first tasted it was like a piece of watermelon that I have. That watermelon tasted so freaking good. That first bite, I was like, "Holy shit." piece of watermelon I ever had.
Yeah.
But no, but I really thank you for that because I really want to try that again. And I'm kind of bummed that I am not able, and that's why I want to ask you about a little bit. Bummed that because I wasn't doing it for weight loss. I am pretty lean. I don't have a problem with weight, but I wanted to get to the 3 days for um getting into the spiritual
Sure.
aspect
Yeah.
of it or the
Yeah, yeah.
feeling of it. And I just don't think. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's just not my gig, not what I'm going to do. But I wanted to ask you too, because I only did the dry fast for 24 hours, and I was doing it for detoxing and like the autophagy. Do you get to autophagy in the 24 hours, or does it really have to be a more of an extended part of it?
It depends on a couple of things, and like we'll get around to answering this, but like one thing I want people to know is that let's not make it about the days and the hours, right? Because like that comes back to everything we've been talking about in the beginning of this, and like that's the juice, like the real big takeaway from it all is maybe one. I'll explain it, right? How the utility of the dry fast or the utility of fasting. Okay, I went out with my friends and I drank a lot and ate some fried whatever, and I don't feel so awesome, and I don't have good energy. This is the time to use the fast. It's like you're using it as a tool because of choices that you've made. Now you're doing the fast. You prepare yourself accordingly. I don't know how deep I could get with the allotted time, but like, and maybe we could talk about that in the future, but this preparatory phase is something you should feel into. It should not be 24 hours. If you're somebody who's perhaps very, very overweight and you have a lot of toxicity and like bad sleep, soreness, like all this inflammation, your prep phase has to be different than somebody who's like supremely underweight, maybe has a thyroid problem. So it's really tailored to where you're at and what you're feeling through. Now, based on your situation, yeah, like this pushing it to 3 days thing when you're already lean, it's definitely going to be more of like a spiritual thing for you. And you're going to have to almost allow it to be because the fat loss that goes on during this time period is going to be very, very noticeable. And of course, especially with women, and we're just being direct here, like they don't like to see themselves losing all that type of fat, and it could be just make you end early, or it can make you like go have a bad relationship with fasting moving forward because you associate it with it doing this to you. You feel me? So there's so much going on here with the ego still, and that's fine, but it is a truth. Now, the autophagy question is also tailored to where you're at individually because there's the carbohydrate that you've consumed prior, like how much glycogen is still in the liver or the muscles. Did you exercise or are you sedentary? I mean, all of that shit matters. So, like, when it comes to getting into autophagy, clearly the quickest route to it would be a dry fast. And the reason why is because you don't even have any liquid for the kidneys to work with. And the people that think this is harmful, no, this is the way the human body is designed. We're not even designed to be eating all day. We're designed, I don't want to call it one meal a day because that sounds buzzwordy, but yeah, we're designed to essentially eat a majority of our calories in one small window and then to have a very prolonged fasting window because we have a very slow digestion. And that's very important for eating cooked food, especially grains, legumes, anything that isn't a fruit. So then that brings that into the conversation. Like if you did a prep for a dry fast with 100% fruit and then you did the dry fast, you're going to enter that state of autophagy so much differently than if you were eating cooked foods and, you know, maybe even having some alcohol or whatever. So it's very dependent on what's the picture we're looking at. Who's it going on with? Also, if a woman's on her period versus not, if a woman's pregnant, that's a whole different conversation. For men, it could be the conversation of where you're at with your moon sign that starts adding in astrology to the mix if you want to like kind of take it there. I've helped one person actually with this. Like I won't say the name just for their privacy, but they were having trouble getting pregnant. The woman was having trouble getting pregnant and they just wanted some advice on how to go about this process. So I recommended this dry fast for the 2.5 days where the moon is moving through their sun sign at birth. So, like if in this instance you're a Gemini, you'd be looking at the lunar astrology to see when the moon is moving through Gemini. And during those 3.5 days, you would be fasting. Now, not only fasting from alcohol, but also fasting from whole foods as much as you can. Going down to liquids would be best, and water would be even better, and a dry fast would be even better. So, that's kind of the sequence here of do less, get more. Not egoic, it's just the way the human body works. The less you consume, the more the body can alleviate, or it could now go to the healing and the repairing and the building, you know? So I know I just provided a lot of information there, but they practiced this for that 2.5 days, and then she got pregnant.
Wow.
So it was combining of semen retention for him with the 2.5 days also dry fasted, with her also practicing this 2.5 days for her astrology, and then the following ovulation, she was able to, they did their thing, and then it ended up
Amazing.
being yeah, it was really fucking cool, and it that one story, there's another one, but it's not important to get to now. But that one story changed my whole like thing
Bet.
here, because like I was like, oh my god, this is definitely more than crypto. Like
Yeah.
holy shit, like people are now able to like do something that they weren't able to do before. And what's the real sacrifice here? Did I tell you to go buy $1,000 worth of bullshit and courses and supplements? Or did I tell you to spend no money, do nothing? I told them to do fucking nothing for 2.5 days. Don't do anything. Free, gratis, enjoy. And then this is what it could, because it's this generative energy, this energy that not only the man holds, but also the woman. This is powerful shit. And like if you're having this blockage going on, there could be tons of reasons for it, by the way. But if you're having this blockage, it's because spirit does not want to go into matter right now with the chemistry that you're both working with. Now, it's the same thing for your healing. If you're somebody who's not able to heal the thing, it's because there's blockages. Like anything else, the same thing goes for trauma, a separate conversation, but it's similar. Like if two people that hate each other are trying to make a baby, that's the energy and the frequency that baby will be created with. It's all influencing in a sense. So, yeah, like I think that for you with your journey through the fasting, go into the fast, feel into it, prepare in a way where you're feeling into it, have it all be intuitive. And then if it gets to day 2 or if it gets to day 3, then fucking awesome, you know? I just
Hmm.
think that it's more about the practice than it is the going for the amount of days. Because I've seen this happen to so many people where they're treating it like it's a trophy, and then they get this 3-day dry fast complete, and then they binge eat a bunch of bullshit after, and then they go right back 2 steps forward, 2 steps back thing. And if anything, they damage their gut more because you just cleansed yourself, and now you're putting shitty oil back in a cleaned out car. It's
Yeah.
dumb. you know so I think the slow and methodical approach over the long term is probably the most value anyone will get from this, and then to just have the awareness that the kidneys are really the thing that don't get addressed during most water fasts, and that's the reason why I'm not a proponent for the water fasting. It's not that I think they are bad, I think they're just not as useful, although you can typically go longer. That can serve other purposes, but putting this big burden on the kidneys for consuming just water for 3, 4, 5 days straight, it's gonna, yeah, they're your body's filters. And giving them a moment to just take a break is actually probably one of the most healing things you could do for the lymphatic system. And that's the system that does not get addressed in Western medicine and in most of the medical field. They don't know anything about the lymphatic system. They know very, very little. Probably less about the lymph than they do about food. And if you're anyone who knows a doctor out there, they get maybe 4 to 10 hours of nutritional training over their entire career. It's
Yeah, that's
fucking
frightening.
sad. So not having awareness of the lymph, uh, yeah, that is what's built a lot of this people going dry fasts sound crazy and unsafe, and also simultaneously just believing that water fasts are somehow superior. But it's contextual. It depends on the person. Um, and yeah, I don't recommend the extended water fasts for most people. I would probably prefer like a coconut water fast or like a juice fast. I don't. You wouldn't call it a fast then, but like a who's that one dude? He used to say like a juice feast or something. I forgot the guy. It's really popular like a while ago. But yeah, this idea of not just consuming pure water, that could be another strategy. You could push it further. You don't put this big bearing on your kidneys to be consuming only pure waters. And yeah, you could have I mean coconut water is way more like your body's pH and like your body's internal liquids. I mean, I've heard that you could replace an IV with coconut water and it would work. Pure water, on
Interesting.
the other hand, does not. And that's a really controversial thing. Like pure drinking all this excessive pure water is damaging the kidneys because it has basically exogenous minerals that are inorganic. So like soil, sand, dirt, dust. Anyone who uses a water distiller can show themselves very quickly how much debris is inside of the water you're drinking, and that's what damages the kidneys. So that's a no, that's not good. Now I know it's impossible to escape that because every coffee shop you go to, every place is going to be using tap. It's not about pushing fear. It's just like I guess if you have a situation where you own a home or you have an apartment and you could invest in a water distiller and start replacing all of your tap waters with distilled waters, or maybe start drinking more coconut water if you could find a high quality coconut water out there, like doing those sorts of things, then you don't need to fast as much because
Hmm.
you're not putting junk in the body as much. It's kind of one way to look at it. But anyways, I do have to go. It's been
Yeah.
great to connect. Um, Appreciate you and keep in touch.
All right, Jordan. Thank you so much.
Of course. Much love. Take care.
Bye.